Hello, my friends. Today's topic is key features of cosmic cybernetics, cosmobiology, and vibrational astrology. There's a form of astrology that I developed, and it's gone under many names. It's been called cosmic tapestry astrology. So if you hear these names, they may refer to the same thing. Some of them refer to other things. It's confusing, so little wonder that there's so much confusion about this. But let me just go over these names of a form of astrology that you may hear. Cosmic tapestry astrology, energy process astrology, energy function astrology. Those pretty much have always been used for the system of astrology that I've developed. Then there's harmonic astrology, which sometimes gets that name. That's really a misnomer. What I'm doing has some overlap with almost any other system. It's really not harmonic astrology. Davidian astrology. I thought that one was funny. Like David's astrology. Anyway, cosmo-harmonic astrology, some people have called it. Vibrational astrology is what we have been calling the system, I guess for the last 10, 15 to 20 years. But just in the last few weeks, and by the way, when am I making this video? November 2023. So I believe it was October 2023. Starting to relabel what it is and calling what I'm doing the system of astrology. And of course, there's been other people developing it. It's not like just one person. We're sometimes now calling it cosmobiology, and sometimes we're calling it cosmic cybernetics. Now that's also confusing because cosmobiology is usually defined as a system developed by an astrologer, Reinhold Eberton, in the, I guess, mid to late 20th century. And he uses a lot of emphasis on midpoints and stuff. However, in Eberton's definition of cosmobiology, he doesn't mention midpoints as what it is. He mentions it as something, what we would now call evidence-based. So we're sometimes using the word cosmobiology. Sometimes we're using the term cosmic cybernetics, which is a term developed by Theodore Landscheid. So one of the reasons, or the main reason, that I am relabeling this system of astrology from vibrational astrology to either cosmobiology or cosmic cybernetics is because the academic communities, also some of the large business communities, are getting very excited about this new system of astrology, and they don't like the word astrology. It's more important than the fact they don't like it is that it's confusing, very confusing, and I will talk about what that confusion is on the next slide. But this word astrology, as applied to this system of what is actually a form of astrology, is really a mess. It's getting so confusing. So we're now using the term cosmobiology and cosmic cybernetics. A new variation that's appearing is vibrational cosmobiology. That's a lot of syllables. Vibrational cosmobiology, and maybe a little difficult to remember, but I like it. It's very descriptive. So we are now calling it cosmobiology, cosmic cybernetics, sometimes vibrational cosmobiology. I'm not using the term vibrational astrology so much anymore, as I will explain. So anyway, there's all these things referring to the same things. Some of these words also are applied to other things. It's very confusing. But let me explain what this is. And because of this confusion, what people are saying about cosmic cybernetics in terms of what I'm doing, they're saying all kinds of things, much of which isn't true. So this is another video to clarify what is this cosmic cybernetics. Okay, cosmic cybernetics, as I use the term, it's also was originally used by Theodore Landscheid for what he was doing. Again, there's these confusions, but cosmic cybernetics, in terms of what, in the context of what I'm doing, means it's data-driven and evidence-based. That's the number one thing about cosmic cybernetics. It's not so much the techniques, like do we use midpoints? Yes. Do we use what people call harmonics? Yes. Do we use ideas from physics? Yes. Do we use ideas from evolutionary astrology? Yes. Do we use ideas from Vedic astrology? Yes. The techniques used can change, they can evolve. In fact, they are changing and evolving quite rapidly, because the heart of cosmic cybernetics is not the technique, it's the procedure for understanding. It's extremely and purely evidence-based. Now, what do we mean by evidence-based? Well, here's an example. For any astrological systems, there's a theoretical framework, the basic assumptions, the basic model. Like, are these ideas passed down from ancient times? We don't know exactly how they work, or are we seeing it as psychological dynamics? How are we visualizing what the astrology is, or are we even mostly agnostic and don't really know or care? That's still a theoretical framework. What are your assumptions? How strong are they? There's always some assumptions. So the theoretical framework serves data and not the other way around. So let me give an example of what I see as not data-driven to the extent that vibrational astrology is. In the early to mid-1970s, when this cosmic cybernetic system was being developed, I'll talk about the history as well, Cosmobiology as the system of Reinhold Eberton, this midpoint system, and harmonic astrology as a system by John Addy were not integrated. They were two separate systems. I would read books, I would attend lectures. I never saw anybody integrate Eberton's cosmobiology system with Addy's harmonic astrology. Probably other people did. It almost never happens in history that there's only one person. I'm not saying that nobody did. I'm saying I never saw it, and I don't see everything. I'm not omniscient, So probably some people did. I doubt I'm the only one, but I never saw it. There were two separate systems. Now, what's interesting about cosmobiology by Eberton and harmonic astrology by Addy is that they both had a lot of research, empirical research behind them, much more than almost any other system. They collected data. They were, nerdy. They liked data. Addy had hundreds, sometimes thousands of cases of different conditions or behavior traits, different things, and looking for consistencies. This emphasis on getting data, confirming that astrology actually works, very strong by both of them. Now, if your interest is primarily being data-driven, which is what vibrational astrology is, then you would be attracted to both and you would be using both. So I was using both of these systems of astrology that have a lot of, we can call it empirical or controlled research evidence behind them. Still weak by modern scientific standards, but much more than just anecdotal evidence and traditional beliefs. So being a data-driven, evidence-based approach, that's the number one thing about vibrational astrology. We embrace anything and everything that goes beyond personal experience, personal wisdom, and tradition. Is there anything wrong with tradition? Is there anything wrong with personal experience? No. They are the starting point, the very, very starting point in an evidence-based system as defined by the American Medical Association, as defined by the American Psychological Association, as defined by many, many professional groups who all embrace evidence-based practice. There is a hierarchy of confidence, and your personal experience and traditional beliefs gives a very, very, very low level of confidence. We're just following the rules of modern research methods. So we're looking for higher levels of confidence. That requires additional ways to look at it. That's the number one thing about cosmic cybernetics. We follow the data. I would say, just my observation, nothing like hugely scientific or maybe that objective about it, that harmonic astrology, as defined by John Addy, was not as data-driven. If it was, they would have been incorporating, looking at, excited about Everton's Cosmobiology, which started earlier than the harmonic astrology, earlier in the sense of being modern books being written. I mean, historically, you could say, well, Johannes Kepler did harmonic astrology, whatever. I'm not talking about just some, I'm just talking about as a modern developed system. Lots of books, lots of people using cosmobiology. If you're data-driven, you're just looking at what gives the greatest confidence. Not so much emphasis on what my intuition is, what my personal experience is, what my inner wisdom is telling me. That is important too. I'm not saying you neglect it. But we're more interested in what the data is, what the evidence is. Are there controlled studies? How were they done? Okay. And harmonic astrology is not as evidence-based, as strict about just looking at evidence as cosmic cybernetics. Okay, another big part of cosmic cybernetics. Cosmic cybernetics is a hybrid of the evidence-based practice movement, a huge movement in medicine, psychology, and other fields today, started around the 1990s. Another key part of cosmic cybernetics is physics. We're using ideas like dimension reduction, the importance of vibration and resonance, and other fundamental things like the importance of angular momentum, also known as spin, fundamental principles of physics and mathematical models, the patterns created by what are called Paisano periods. There's all these mathematical models and concepts in physics that are not just vague intuitions or general philosophical concepts, but they give us actual specific conclusions. It informs how we calculate secondary progressions, for example, informed by the physics and the fundamental concepts in modern science. A third thing that influences cosmic cybernetics is a Taoist perspective. This integrates well with physics. This is huge. This is one of the largest distinguishing things about cosmic cybernetics. Again, cosmic cybernetics has two meanings. It has one meaning, which is what Theodore Landscheid was doing. I'm taking that term and applying it, in a evolving system that's decades later after his work. Cosmic cybernetics, in the context of the work that I do and my colleagues do, has this radically different idea from anything in cosmobiology and anything in harmonic astrology, which is that each planet does one thing. This is unheard of. It's a radically different approach, that Mars is not a warrior, it's not an archetype, it's not all these things. Those are purely symptoms, that Mars actually does something. That these are forces. They're forces. They're, in mathematics, we call them vectors. They're forces with a direction. They also have a purpose. So this is a radically different way of thinking about how astrology works, and it has direct, immediate impact on your interpretation. When we interpret anything in vibrational astrology, Venus is trine Saturn, whatever it is, the interpretation is different because we're understanding the planets in a different way. They are not archetypal. The archetypes are extremely important, but it doesn't mean that astrology has to be primarily archetypal. You can have many things that are important. Astrology is what it is, and the archetypes are born out of these processes. This is radically different. This is one of the things that the harmonic astrologers like David Hamblin and other people over the years, they encourage me to find a new name and label clearly what I'm doing, because what I'm doing is not harmonic astrology. It steals a little bit from harmonic, from Vedic, from different things. But for some reason, people keep thinking vibrational astrology and harmonic astrology are like two sides of the same coin. They're not. And this is one of the extreme differences. One of the really fundamental principles is what a planet does, what a zodiac sign does. Also, on the topic of being evidence-based, if you say that Cancer is, emotional and maternal, and Leo is proud and, has this kind of charisma and is loyal and all these things the books say, that violates the evidence-based practice. We don't say that. If you're saying that, you're not using the cosmic cybernetics system. You're just not, because our highest level of confidence, based on the hierarchy of confidence that we have in modern research methods, that's just not true. So we have tons of research that have reformulated how astrology works, and it's affecting every aspect of astrology, whether it's zodiac signs or houses or any number of things. It's a very, very different evidence-based system from anything that has existed before. Does that mean it's better? Of course not. People make up all kinds of things. But let's just be clear about what cosmic cybernetics is. Now, cosmic cybernetics is a hybrid. It integrated from many different sources, such as Dane Rudhyar's person-centered astrology. A lot of ideas in I was going to say vibrational astrology. Just in the last few weeks, I'm trying to stop that habit and call it cosmic cybernetics. That in cosmic cybernetics, or vibrational cosmobiology, or cosmobiology, those are the terms we now prefer, because we're now working more in the academic communities than in the astrological communities, and it just works much better, fits much better, and creates less confusion. So, cosmic cybernetics is a hybrid. It integrated ideas. It didn't just throw them together in a haphazard way. It integrated them into something new and cohesive. Cosmic cybernetics is very cohesive, very internally consistent, and the principles are very simple. But all this was built by drawing upon different traditions. So I was starting to say, Dane Rudhyar's person-centered astrology plays a huge part in the cosmic cybernetics model, that astrology, looking at the chart, is not an as above, so below. Here's the person. Here's what was going on in the sky, and the sky is somehow a mirror of what's going on in their lives. No, there's a dynamic where there's energy forces working through us, and so it's very influenced by some of the ideas of Dane Rudhyar, by ideas in Taoism, by ideas in physics, and evolutionary astrology, because evolutionary astrology emphasizes the chart as something that's moving, evolving, rather than static. That's consistent with cosmic cybernetics. The bottom line, the conclusion from all these influences, is that the astrology chart shows how energy flow from higher dimensional space tries to be expressed in our lives. Now that may sound abstract, but that's a fundamental concept, part of the theoretical framework, the assumptions of cosmic cybernetics. What is the astrology? It's energy flow from higher dimensional space getting expressed in our lives in the three dimensions of space and one dimension of time in which we live. That sounds abstract. It may sound like woo-woo, like what the heck do I do with that? It has very practical, specific consequences when you interpret charts. I'm not going to go into all that right now. This video is about what cosmic cybernetics is, and also what it is not, and trying to clear up some of the confusion. Cosmic cybernetics, number 2, uses scientific reductionism within a holistic concept. What I mean by scientific reductionism? That each planet performs only one function. Scientific reductionism is a bad word. It sounds terrible. This is exactly what people don't want in astrology. Like, they want everything to be an interactive, complex web and not have these simple functions. However, take music. Music is so simple, can be so easily reduced to little formulas that you can listen to music on your computer. You can listen to it, on a CD. scientists have reduced music to simple formulas. And we're all happy because we can listen to music, on our computers, on our mobile phones, etc. Does that mean that music is nothing more than those little formulas that the scientists found? No. Those little formulas somehow form a foundation for we can call it the magic, the inspiration, the elevation that music can do. So it's a little bit counterintuitive, or it might sound like an oxymoron, that something can be simple formulas and a mystical, whole, revelatory experience at the same time. But that's true with music, and it's true in cosmic cybernetics. Number 3, another key part of cosmic cybernetics, is that it involves an extremely complex pattern analysis. Fortunately, we have very sophisticated astrology software that finds these intricate, complex patterns, breaks them down, shows them to us, prioritizes them. It's an endless amount of work, thousands of hours of software programming going in to finding these patterns so that we can look at them, validate them, research them, use them with our clients. It's a whole new world, very, very different from what John Addy did or anybody else did. And part of that is just the ongoing evolution of history. You couldn't do cosmic cybernetics 30 years ago. We didn't have the tools to do it. You couldn't go on the internet, say 40 years ago. It didn't exist, or however many years ago it was. We're in a new world, an information age. And cosmic cybernetics has now evolved into something so radically different from any other set of tools used. And at this point in time, I'm making this video in November 2023, you cannot do cosmic cybernetics without the Kepler or Sirius software. You just can't. The other software doesn't have the features that we now consider to be essential. We're in a whole new world of information and processing. And by the way, I'm no longer an owner or an employee of the company that produces this software. So there's no personal benefit for me to saying this. And when I was a part owner and active as an, you might say, an employee owner, I felt a little funny saying that. It sounds like, just bias for business. Now it's a little easier for me to say that. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. You cannot see these intricate vibrational patterns that we think are essential. So, harmonic astrology and cosmobiology as defined by Reinhold Everton, they're child's play compared to cosmic cybernetics. They're not. You can do them with little dials. You can calculate them with just a harmonic chart can be sufficient. To do like a professional level chart interpretation, forecasting, anything using cosmic cybernetics, those tools are not sufficient. So there are many, many, many reasons why cosmic cybernetics is not some variation of harmonic astrology, or not. It's its own unique, separate world built out of a lot of things. So let's look at the overlap. Yeah, it's a separate world, but of course all systems of astrology overlap. What are the big influences on cosmic cybernetics? A wild guess, I don't know how to divide this up into percents, but as best I could make a wild guess, I would say 25%, about 1/4 of cosmic cybernetics is that it's evidence-based research methods. That's what I said before. Here what I'm doing is I'm dividing it into percents. That's the key thing. Especially research methods developed since the 1990s. It's the new machine learning techniques, the extreme case sampling methods that are used in genetics research, the new exploratory research tools for building models. These very modern research methods driving our knowledge, our information, and prioritizing what we have the greatest confidence in. That's the fundamental thing. Harmonic astrology is much more paradigm driven. It's much more paradigm driven rather than data driven. For vibrational, there you go, calling it vibrational astrology again. In cosmic cybernetics, yes, we have a very clear, strong theoretical framework. But in some books on research design, it's called scaffolding. It's just something you put up in order to get the information you need and to make new discoveries. That scaffolding can change, can be replaced. The techniques can be replaced. There's only one thing that doesn't get replaced. Only one thing. That's that we use the rules for evidence-based practice. You can go to the American Psychological Association website and you can read their rules for evidence-based practice. You can go to the American Medical Association. You can go to many professional groups. You can Google it. I've made videos on details on what an evidence-based practice is, where it comes from. It's not just, oh, I looked at evidence. No, there's very detailed rules, and we follow those rules. Why do we follow them? Because they work. Okay, that's 25% of cosmic cybernetics. Next thing. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 things that I gave 15% to, about the same. One is alternative models for astrology. The work of people like Theodore Landscheid, Rodney Cohen, Johannes Kepler, and others who were searching for some alternative, some new, some fresh way of understanding how this astrology can work. Why are they looking for a new way? Because the existing explanations were lacking. They felt weak. They didn't feel consistent with other areas of knowledge. They didn't feel consistent with what we observe. So they tried to integrate various kinds of scientific ideas with astrological ideas. That is exactly what cosmic cybernetics is. It's a whole new model, a whole new way of understanding how astrology works. It's not just saying, oh, it's, vibrations. Very, very specific. What does each planet do? How does it interact? What are the orbs? What are the way we emphasize? Where does it come from? Why are there zodiac signs? I've made dozens of videos. We have a strong model for why there are zodiac signs, and it's not because it's some kind of season thing. They're built out of Paisano periods and prime number patterns. So this new framework for understanding astrology, inspired by other people who were searching for it, I would say that's another 15%. Another key part of cosmic cybernetics is the emphasis on energy flow that I already talked about. Each planet is not an archetype. Venus is not, a pretty girl, and Mars, an athletic guy, and Saturn, an old guy, and all these archetypes. What are they? The great mother, the this, the that. They do something very specific. And that this is a flow from a higher dimensional space, and our goal is to get aligned with that flow, which is a Taoist kind of idea of like, here's the energy, how do you flow with it and maximize your attunement to this? I would say that's about 15%. Cosmobiology, as used by Ryan Hold-Everton, huge influence. Let's give that 15%. Let's give John Addy's harmonic astrology about 15%. Only 15%, I think, is already generous. But cosmic cybernetics is not some variation of harmonic astrology. I don't know why people keep saying that. They have not watched the nearly 700 YouTube videos I've made that average a half hour. They have not read the book. They have not taken my classes. And they're just repeating stuff that they hear and impressions that they get. So, just setting the record straight. Now, Vedic astrology has had a very strong influence on cosmic cybernetics. In fact, Vedic astrology was a huge influence in developing the ideas before harmonic astrology. The reason that I first got interested in the idea of what are called minor aspects, that's the beginning of of the harmonic part of cosmic cybernetics was not because of John Addy or even Johannes Kepler. It was because of Vedic astrology. It was one of the first systems I studied in detail. And they're what are called the Vargas, or also called divisional charts. And I worked with them intensively, and I read the rules. So Vedic astrology is what got me interested. I wrote a book in 1977 called Astrology for the 21st Century. Again, that's 1977 that the book was published. I started writing it around 1974. In that book, there's almost no mention of harmonics. The original inspirations were about energy process, that astrology works by energy process. And I developed a whole theory of degree meanings. It was one of the original parts of this system. A lot of that was derived by combining ideas in mathematical patterns combined with Vedic Vargas. The Vedic influence was very, very, very strong. At the beginning, we haven't, researchers in cosmic cybernetics haven't been able to validate and incorporate most of the ideas in Vedic astrology. So I'm going to put it at 10%. But historically, the Vedic astrology is important for inspiring and triggering and motivating a lot of what we do in cosmic cybernetics. And lastly, modern Western astrology with the insights into psychological dynamics, seeing the chart as evolutionary, got a lot of ideas from a lot of astrologers in modern Western. Very helpful. Let's give that 5%. I think that adds up to 100. I hope so. 15 times 4 is 60, 70, 75. Yeah, it looks like it does. So, just to give a sense of what it is now, let's look at the timeline. Let's go through this quickly. 1969 is when I was using the I Ching and seeing life as energy flow and a goal of not fighting the energy flow and Taoist philosophy. That becomes a core principle, one of the most fundamental principles of cosmic cybernetics. Highly, you might say, biased or influenced by my extensive use of the I Ching and that whole philosophy and way of looking at life. And then around 1970, I thought I was going to be a Jungian psychologist at that time when I was in college in 1970. And that Jung used astrology and he conducted research, counting up how many people have the same sun and moon signs when they're married and so on. That just blew my mind. It got me really interested in astrology. In 1972, was in the second week, I don't have the exact day, but somewhere around the 10th or 12th of September, I believe it was, I had learned to calculate charts using an ephemeris and table of houses. I started interviewing people and talking to them, and it just blew my mind. Just this anecdotal evidence that, oh my God, it looks like astrology works. That was so incredible. I'm not going to go into the details of exactly what happened. There were one or two events that were just really amazing. So now, 51 years later, I'm still at it, nonstop. Just giving you a little bit of history, because I've been hearing people talking about the history of what I'm doing, and I'm going, that's not what happened. I never said that. Where do you get these ideas? 1973, 1981, I was living in semi-seclusion. I lived without electricity in a little hut. I did have access to office space. I had access to a college computer system. I didn't have to work. I had no expenses. I was living on somebody's land for free. And I was studying astrology nonstop, interviewing, and then later turning into consultations. I published the book Astrology for the 21st Century in 1977. So the actual true story of cosmic cybernetics is that I drew upon a whole bunch of different things and they integrated into this new system. Some people are saying I jumped on a bandwagon of the harmonic astrology. It's interesting. I like when people tell me what my life is all about. Like, oh, I didn't know I did that. Actually, I didn't do that. Was one of the sources that got pulled into this system. in the 1980s and 90s, developing the software, the tools for analysis, developing databases. The theory was slowly evolving. 2001 to 2010, that's the time period where I got my master's degree in research and evaluation methodology. Started getting more interested in high-tech and rigorous research and how it's done. Learned about a lot about machine learning and different things. Started doing more rigorous research. And then around the 2010s, let's say 2011 to the current year, I don't really, it's hard to pick out dates. I know I've given these dates before, probably slightly differently, but it's hard to compartmentalize this. But somewhere in the last, what would now be the last, say, 13 years or so, the revolutionary breakthroughs happened. I mean, you work on something for 40 years, and all of a sudden, bam, 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 it starts working. Just totally blew my mind. And now we're migrating to the academic community, not so involved in astrological communities anymore. And the book, The Astrology of Bipolar Disorder, Scientific Breakthrough, that really triggers the revolution. I think that came out in early 2022, if I remember right. And data scientists and other people are reading it and they're going, oh my God, this looks real. So we're now in a different world of academic and big business and not so much involved with the astrology community because this is such a different thing, being so strictly evidence-based. What we are is primarily evidence-based, and that is a cardinal rule of academia. So academics are not having as much difficulty accepting that there could be a whole new set of variables that they never considered, as it is difficult for astrologers to say, well, I'm going to be more purely evidence-based in the modern sense of it, and actually spend the time to read the research and go through the details and learn this intricate pattern analysis. That's been more difficult. So, and hence the change of name to Cosmic Cybernetics. There's more information and more corrections to misunderstanding in another video I made called Corrections to Misinformation about Vibrational Astrology. You can go to YouTube and type that in, and my name, and it will take you to it. I'll also put a link to that video in the description below. Well, that's it. A little background to what vibrational astrology is. Where are we here? 37 minutes. I like to keep it to about a half hour, so not too much over what I like to do. If you're a member, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you don't know what membership is, it's really just a donation to keep things going. I do, if you make comments, I prioritize responding to members first. But other than that, it's mostly just a donation to keep this going. If you're not a member, you don't want to donate $5 or $10 a month to have these, to support making these videos. You can at least become a subscriber. It doesn't cost anything, and it helps grow the channel. So if you appreciate it, what I'm doing here, you can become a subscriber. If you want to take another step forward and donate to help out, I greatly appreciate it. And you can become a member. It really helps pay the bills and make it possible to keep doing this. Okay, well, that's it, my friends. Thank you very much for listening. God bless. Namaste.